All right, welcome everybody to the District 5 June Crime and Safety Meeting. We're going to start off. Our special guest today is Latrice Hicks with our Emergency Communications Department. So I'm going to pull up her PowerPoint and we'll get it rolling.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, it does. Yep.
So my name is Latrice. I'm the supervisor or one of the supervisors for our Emergency Communications Department where we answer all 911 and non-emergency calls for service. Thank you so much for passing out the flyer. I'm going to be talking about that. So this is just a little history lesson about how 911 was developed. All cities have 7-digit numbers to dial 911, but sometimes that's hard, especially if you're having a medical emergency or a real life emergency to figure out what that number is. So the first 911 call was made February 16, 1968 in Hyattville, Alabama by a senator. It's just an easy number to remember, 3-digit number, just in case if you have an emergency. Who answers the 911 calls? It's a civilian agency now. It's all it's majority females, some males up there. We answer all, again, non-emergency and emergency calls for service. And our new department is called Department of Emergency Communications. We are a new department. It started in February. We were once part of the police department, but now we're an agency on our own. When should you call 911? Life or death situations. So if you hear shots fired, you see someone that's shot, you see a crime in progress, someone's having a heart attack, things like that, all reasons to dial 911. If there's a fire, smoke detectors going off, you should dial 911. You see somebody outside with a weapon, even if they're not doing anything with that weapon, you should dial 911. If you're involved in an accident, you see an accident, dial 911. You see someone suspiciously in your neighborhood, you're not sure what they're up to, all reasons to dial 911. If someone's in harm's way, somebody's making threats, these are reasons we should dial 911. The first thing that we're gonna ask you while you're on the phone is your location. The location is very important. And we're gonna ask you to repeat that location 2 times to make sure that we heard it correctly from you. And we may repeat it back to you as well as some other information. But the location is very important for us because if you can't give us anything else, if you're having a medical emergency, at least we got that location. And we can send out help to check on you to see what's going on. Technology is not always perfect. We have these TV shows, 911 and all that. That's not how our technology works all the time. So we don't know exactly where you are when you dial 911. So a lot of people get annoyed with this because we ask the location, but it's very important that we do know it. So this is the information that we'll receive if you have a landline phone when you dial 911. Does anybody still have landlines? No? Okay, amazing. So when you dial 911, we'll see your name. We'll know your name. Whoever the account holder's name is, will have your name. We'll also have that address. So if you have that address registered, if it's 2333 North 49th Street, that's the address that will pop us for us. We'll have your phone number and we'll know if it's coming from a business or a residence. Like if Walmart calls and they dial for a landline, we know that Walmart calls. So this is only for a landline. Some of the issues with this, and we're still gonna verify this information to ask you to say it twice, is because humans do enter this information into the system. It can be an error. So we wanna make sure that the information that we're receiving is the correct information where you need help. If you're dialing from a cell phone, which the majority of us have, we don't get all that nice information from the landlines. We get the cell phone company. If you call in from Verizon, Sprint, that's the information that we'll get. The location that we'll get is coordinates. We make it a phase 1 coordinate, which is the tower of where that phone is bouncing off at. We may get a phase 2 location, which is a little bit closer to that tower or where you actually are, but it may say you're 43 feet northwest of that location or 253 east of that location. So again, it's not really accurate, but it's closer than a tower. And sometimes we get rapid SOS, which is kind of pinpoint of where you are. So it just all depends. We don't get an option of how we get the information. This is just the information we do receive it on our phone calls. And then of course, we do have your phone number when you do down 911. We ask a lot of questions. We need to ask a lot of questions to make sure that we're receiving the right help for you. We're sending the correct number of officers, and to make sure that we understand what your problem is. So again, that first question we're gonna ask is that location. That's the most important thing to us. What is the emergency? Do you need police, or do you need fire? Or do you need medical help? We need to know what's going on. We need to know who's involved. We need to know descriptions. And sometimes when people are fighting, they say, oh, it's the black males, they're all wearing white t-shirts and black jeans. Well, in summertime, that's everybody. So we need to know, okay, does he have tattoos? How is his hair? Is he dark complected, light complected? What type of shoes? Anything it is that make that person stand out in the crowd so the officers know what they're looking for, we're gonna ask those questions to try to get it out of you. When did this occur? Did it just occur 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, yesterday? When exactly it occurred? That's very important for us when we ask that. And do you need medical? Was anybody injured at that? Because then it's another process that we have to do for that. So those are some of the questions that we ask, but there are more questions. And just to keep in mind, when we are asking these questions, it does not stop service or going. What I mean by that is, in order for us to send officers out, all we need is a location and what's going on, which is why we ask those questions first. Once we get those questions, we can send that call to an officer and to our dispatchers, who can try to raise officers to go. And we're just updating that call as it goes along. If there's a lot of calls coming in at once, this is kind of how it happens. So we have some call takers that are assigned to answer only 911 calls for service, that's it. All they answer is 911 calls all day. And then we have call takers that answer our admin calls for service. Those are our non-emergency calls for service. Admin call takers also answer 911 calls for service. So if our 911 operators are all tied up on the line, then it goes to our admin call takers, our next in line, to take those calls. Now, those two are tied up on a line, then you go into a queue until the next available call taker is available. In the past, that queue used to be very long. We had people waiting on hold for 911, sometimes about 5 minutes. But we are getting better. We have a lot of staffing now, or more staffing than we had in the past. Our retention rate is a little bit higher than normal. I'm not sure if you dial 911 or non-emergency frequently, but you should tell that you're not waiting on hold for a long time, especially for the non-emergency number. We used to have people waiting 20, 30 minutes on the non-emergency line. Now it's not that bad. It's about a minute or two for the non-emergency. So we're having a staffing that people are not in queue a lot. If there's a big crash, like on 27th and Capitol, and everybody is calling because it's visual, then that might jam up our 911 calls where someone may be in hold. But in a normal situation, this is not going to work. But this is just our process of how those calls come in. So our current routing is, if you call 911, you're gonna get a 911 call taker. That 911 call taker is gonna ask you if you need medical. Let me kind of go back a little bit. So I told you we're a new agency, and some of our policies are changing. So right now, if you dial 911 and someone's having a heart attack or someone needs medical, we're gonna transfer you to a fire call taker. We do have law call takers who answer only law issues, and then we have fire and medical call takers who answer the medical emergencies. So if you dial 911, you're gonna get transferred to a fire call taker if you have a medical emergency to address that. Now, if you dial 911 and you need fire and police, you're gonna talk to both that police call taker as well as that fire call taker, if that makes sense. So the police are gonna ask you if you say you need medical, we're gonna transfer you to medical right away. Once you're done talking to medical, you're gonna come right back to that call taker on the phone and talk to that, get the law part. Did that kind of confuse you a little bit? Okay. Our current practices, or I'm sorry, what we're trying to transition to is that when you dial 911, you're gonna get a UCT, a universal call taker. So that that means that call taker that answers that phone is able to handle police and fire and emergency at the same time, instead of being transferred to somebody else. So we are in the works of that. We got about 19 people trained in that, and that's what we're focused on right now. So it's not a burden, or you think that we're hanging up on you transferring to somebody else. We're able to answer both of those, police and law call taker, just one person at this time. So here are some tips when you dial 911. Do not hang up. It may be in your pocket and you accidentally dial 911, still don't hang up, because what we have to do is we have to call you back. We have to make sure that you're okay and it's not an emergency. So don't hang up. We know that accidents happen. We know that cell phones sometimes dial 911 on an accident. Just don't hang up, because we're gonna call you back. Be ready with that location. Remember, that location is the most important thing that we're gonna gather. That if you can't tell us anything else, at least we can send to that location to see what's going on. We do say stay calm as possible, but we know you're dialing 911 and it's not sunshine and butterflies. This is the worst day of your life that you have to dial 911. Something has went wrong, so we know sometimes that is not possible. But be patient with us with all the questions that we do ask. Again, it's for your safety as well as for the firefighters and the police officers that do respond out to those scenes. Answer our questions as best as you can. Sometimes we know that you can't answer all of the questions, but we're asking them for a reason. And if you want us to be anonymous, I know there was issues in the past, you can't stay anonymous. Just let us know that you want to be anonymous, you don't want a squad to your door. We'll put all of that stuff in a text and make sure that the officers know that you don't want to be anonymous and that they won't point you out in the crowd or go to your house. All of that would be in the text. Or, I'm sorry, when I say text, I mean in the report that goes to the officers when they respond, the CAD. Yes, thank you. This is just, again, letting you know, if you do dial 911 by mistake, do not hang up. We're going to call you back just to make sure that everything's okay. So what happens if the phone disconnects? So sometimes people dial 911 and there's argument on the phone and then they disconnect the line. We didn't get all that information that we needed from them. We're gonna call them back to answer, to see if they answer the phone, to see if they can give us some more information. It can be an open line. If people are yelling back and forth with each other, no one's really telling us what's going on, we're gonna try to attempt to call back to see what's going on. Sometimes you dial 911 and it's a mistake and you hang up. If we get all the information that we need, we're not gonna call you back. But if we need some more information, we're gonna try to call back again. This is just helping the first responders that do need to go to your scene. We do have services for different languages up there. We have the AT&T language line that has so many different languages. We do have a few Spanish call takers up there for people that English is not their first language. Those calls go first to our Spanish call takers, and then if the Spanish call taker is not available, someone else will answer that line. We do have services for our deaf and hard of hearing community. We have TTY, our teletypewriter device for them. We don't have text to 911, but it's pretty much like texting them, typing something into a machine that goes to them. A lot of people in that community do not use that anymore. They use our relay service, which is a third-party service where they'll talk to us and then we'll talk back and then type it in there. So we do have services that will reach out to our deaf and hard of hearing community. So who sends the help? We have call takers and we have dispatchers. And I'm gonna kind of distinguish between these two roles because they are different in a little bit. Or right now, where did it go? Okay, I missed a slide. So our call takers are the ones that answer our 911 calls for service, our 911 and our non-emergency calls for service. Our dispatchers get those calls and then they dispatch their appropriate resources out to your house. So I always say the call takers, they answer the citizens' calls all day long, and our dispatchers, they talk to the officers on the air. Our dispatchers are trained to be call takers though as well, so they can perform both functions. Any questions about 911 or emergency calls for service? So what happens if it's not an emergency? Remember in the beginning I told you how all cities have the 7-digit 911 number? We still have that here. So our police non-emergency number, our 7-digit police number is 765-2323. Our non-emergency number is 933-4444 if you have a non-emergency for the police. For our fire is 286-8999. So when do you want to dial the non-emergency number and not the 911? If the crime is not in progress. If something happened yesterday, you want to dial the non-emergency number. If there's no threat or harm to someone at this time, you can dial the non-emergency number. Loud music, dial the non-emergency number. Abandoned property, not a weapon though, because sometimes there's guns found on the street. You go down 911 for that. But pretty much crimes that are not in progress, there's no weapons on scene, and no one's in harm's way, you would dial the non-emergency number for the police non-emergency number. If it's for the fire, any questions about smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, if you want to do tours, anything like that, but anything that's medical emergency, fires, you want to make sure that we're dialing 911. When in doubt, dial 911. We're gonna answer that phone call and we're gonna put your call in for service, whether it's a 911 call or an emergency call. So this is just a little slide of how many calls we took last year. July is our peak month, where we take a lot of calls, but we do take a lot of calls up there. We take on average between about 50 to 80 calls. One operator can take that in a day. And again, our department now is the Department of Emergency Communications. We're civilianized now. We answer all the 911 calls for this city. If you're not in the city and you get our division, then we'll still transfer you to the agency that's most appropriate for you. Yes.
If you go back to one of your earlier slides, it said that you can report anonymously. But that's not true when you want someone to respond.
It is. What? Give me an example.
So if you want someone to respond to a noise complaint, you guys will not call it out unless someone goes on the record.
That's true. So there's some things that you cannot go. No, we have a new rule for that. We will put in all noise nuisance complaints now. That was an old rule. If you're a victim of a
That's
crime,
like a month ago.
I would say about a month ago. It was about a month ago.
So if you call in a noise complaint now,
Well, you have to ask her if you call in a noise complaint now.
Yeah,
But I know it did.
it recently just came
Yeah.
out. I'm not sure when it came out, but before, yes, it was a rule that you have to be a complainant in order for it to go out. But now you don't no longer need to be a complainant. We'll put those calls in for service.
and are you guys still taking full reports for 4th of July fireworks? Because in the past, the police chief had said they're not sending a response out to us in July.
That depends. We don't get our orders till a few days before the 4th of July. I don't know about that.
But as an officer, we do respond to all firework calls.
They didn't as of last year. It was protocol to not respond to any.
If
But
we
when they're
get
all
calls
going off
in-
at one time, we're going from call to call to call. I'm letting you know as an officer, we go from call to call to call. When all the fireworks are going off at the same time, we're getting shot spotter reports, because sometimes it doesn't distinguish. So regardless if you guys don't call, they still get the shot spotter activation, which it is a call for service with the shot spotter activation, and we do respond.
I'm saying, from a lived experience, that's
Yeah.
different than what it was last year. I was told verbatim on the phone that she would inform them not to respond to any fireworks calls last year.
So I can say our next crime and safety meeting for July is July 2nd. So I can try and make sure that we'll know what the standing order is regarding fireworks by the next crime and safety meeting at least.
That's helpful, but are they gonna be sending that out in advance notice to the people who are currently going out and buying their fireworks now with the intention of setting them off within the city limits?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we can't confirm that. Are they gonna do this or are they gonna?
What
do
I'm
that?
saying is,
Yeah.
if you were to get ahead of it and send out communication that like, police will be responding to fireworks calls, I think it gives people the informed understanding that if they set them off, they're getting a police response. So then, do you see what I'm saying? It allows them to make that decision.
Take that or pass it on into
Yeah, just-
consideration, but we don't have a hard, fast rule as that time has not, come up yet. Like, I can say on 4th of July when I work, we probably have 100 calls pending of fireworks versus how many officers we have over there, plus that being a lower priority call, plus take your priority 1 or 0 calls on top of
But I
that.
think an
Yeah.
ounce of prevention of sending out the forewarning to residents
I hear you, I heard what you said.
could
Yeah.
keep some people from setting them off, knowing that, oh, there's a chance I might get a police response this year, because last year it was a free for all.
It's gonna be like that every year, but it's been a free for all, like that every year for years.
No, I know, but they used to at least respond to calls. Last year it was
The capacity for the police to respond to fireworks calls, I think is pretty minimal.
Right,
I just
I
wanna
think-
put it in perspective.
and capacity is one thing, but flat out ignoring the regulations and laws entirely, which is what they chose to do last year, just gives people the green light to do whatever they want.
Yeah, but
I hear you, we'll take in the
Yeah.
information, you can speak
I
to
don't
one
think
of
they
us
care either
after,
way. Just
after
look at the
work.
driving.
And
All
we'll
it's
take it,
legal
we'll take it
and it's
into
legal.
consideration or pass it on.
I mean, you can care, but there's reality, yes.
I was just gonna piggyback on what she said. In our neighborhood for the past 5 years, the intersection is blocked. People can't get past. One of my elderly neighbors was so upset, she ended up selling her house and moving. They do it every year.
Or if they're blocking the intersection, that's a traffic
Oh, they
hazard.
always do.
So we'll definitely go out for
They
traffic.
always do. I have pictures. We've sent them.
Yeah,
I have a neighbor who has cameras. I mean, open air, drug dealing, the whole 9 yards. We've sent them. So-
Thing is, we stay right on the corner, and they get this crowd, blue gobs of people, all around that intersection, all on our line, messing our line up and everything, and everybody else is around there, so,
That's more than just fireworks complaints.
yeah.
Right,
So-
but our son is concerned with me because we've brought to the attention, and I'm at the point right now where I'm not having it anymore. My husband was, thank God he's better now, but we've lost, cancer has been decimating our family. I understand that people wanna celebrate, but this is past celebration. So, like I said, I told the last person at D5, if you can't do something, I understand you're not gonna go from call to call, but we'll just handle it, just don't come for us.
Well,
That's
we
the
want you
point.
guys
That's
to be
the point.
safe.
That's what we're gonna be safe because it is a safety issue. There are homes that could be burned.
Yeah.
Fireworks are going, people are trying to get through the intersection, they have full tanks of gas.
when I called
So-
last year, they told me, cause I called and told them it hit my roof, and they said, when your house is on fire, call us back.
I believe it. I believe it, cause I've gotten some really weird
Did you get
responses.
this dispatch?
I'm not gonna blame the entire department. I'm not.
Yeah,
You
they
always
said-
have to talk to a supervisor if you think there's a call taker that's, being discouraging to you, or that you think that, a squad needs to go out right now because of an emergency. Just ask to speak to a supervisor and.
I did, and they called me back in August.
Okay.
I wanted to say something, maybe as a retired educator, I look at things differently. When they're playing the music too loud, I just walk up to them and I say, hey, I'm an old lady. I'll give you until this time and then turn it down some because I'd like to go to sleep. And usually they laugh and whatever, and they say, okay. One of the guys was throwing off fireworks across the street a couple years ago, and I went over there and I said, you know what, those things end up in my gutter. And I said, are you gonna come clean the gutter out? You want me to do it, when, day after tomorrow? I said, that would be good. Do you have your own ladder? And he said, yeah. I said, try to keep them from coming over by me then. Throw them up so that they land in your gutter. And I sat for a while and watched them put the fireworks off. I said, okay, now, I think midnight is the next day, so I don't wanna hear them at 1 and 2 and 3 in the morning. And my sister just, they live next door to him. They said, I can't believe you did that. I said, I have my father in me. And I just figure if you go, I mean, they could have told me a roof or whatever, or they, you know, but they didn't. I just said, and I said, please, can we do that? And they said, yes. And just like yesterday, I had some things that I wanted to put out by the garbage can, and a young man was going down the alley. And I said, young man, you look pretty strong. Will you help me take these here? And he said, sure. And he just did it. And I said, can I give you a little something? He said, no, Grandma, that's good. And I said, well, thank you, sweetheart. And I just went on back in the house. Sometimes, if you just tell them, they're getting on your nerves. I mean, I didn't say it that way, but I told them, I like music too. Not yours, but mine. But let's not make it so loud.
And I get it, I live in this neighborhood too, I actually walk here, I live around the corner. So it does, things happen, you know, we've been in this neighborhood for a long time, my grandma owned the house. But, all I can say is if you do have a rapport with your neighbors and you feel comfortable speaking with them, there's nothing wrong with that, but call us, that's what we're here for, you know, if it's an emergency, again, dial 911, if it's not an emergency, dial 911.
My neighbor takes his hose out on July 3rd, and he waters down his whole house, the roof and everything. And he said that I don't have to worry about it burning or whatever. I said, okay, and he does it. He's done it for the last 25 years. He just waters it down. So.
Yes, sir.
Just right quick, the transition from, I guess it was police officers before civilians took over the dispatch, right? Is that nationwide or is that just?
That's just us now. There are sworn agencies, that still have law enforcement in theirs, but, and there's civilians all over too, but ours just happened recently. So it just depends on the city and state and their rules, that they're
Weren't the dispatchers, they were civilians before, you
Yes.
were just part of the police?
So the only people that we had up there were sworn was, our supervisors, our lieutenant and our captain in charge of division, but the dispatchers and convicts were all civilians.
And that's because of decrease in people signing up to be officers, right? Where we have
I
this-
don't think it had anything to do with that, I believe it has something to do with the mayor, that, he didn't like us, the transition where people really don't hold, if they had a medical emergency, down over the fire department. Cause the fire department, they have a lot of call takers, so they were on hold waiting for somebody to answer for the medical emergencies. Yes, sir.
My concern about fireworks is, I don't mind fireworks, but I don't like bombs and rockets. That's the difference in my neighborhood. They have, went to another level with their, and matter of fact, as it relates to that, when I was an officer, I was normally calling in, or when I was an officer, I could step out and tell the guys, stop doing it, they would. But, one time, once I retired, I backed off because some of the conflict I was getting, approached some of these individuals. And, so they were firing off fireworks pretty heavily that night. And some went to my neighbor's back porch. And had it been for the neighbor across on the next block, looking through their window to see that their back porch was on fire, he wouldn't even know. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about, because they're not using firecrackers, they're using bombs and rockets. And that stuff is more dangerous, especially if we got a whole line of vehicles that are gassed up on that same street where they're doing it. I've seen some of those same sparkles, whatever, the residue of those fireworks land on these cars. They go out, thank God, but you just don't know.
Well, we're definitely gonna bring up our concerns. The lieutenant said she's bring them up. I'll actually bring them up, to my supervisors as well for them. Cause that's next month, so it's coming up, so.
Is there any way to cooperate with the engines from the fire companies on that as well? Or just, if you have fireworks that you're shooting off in the city, we just come and hose them down, now they're useless, you wasted your money.
I mean, you would reach out to MFD as far as for.
No, I'm saying the police and fire working together on that, if they're getting involved, if they're setting them off in their intersection, okay, we're gonna send, engine 21 over there, it's just gonna hose down that block, and if your fireworks happen to be out there, gosh darn it, I think they're useless now.
Again, come speak with one of us with all your ideas, and we can, write that down or take a look.
They weren't supposed to be in the city limits anyway, oh gosh.
Any other questions about fireworks?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a firework, but, what people don't know is that fireworks are illegal, and that's the city ordinance. So, I did talk to one of my neighbors, and I told him not to use it anymore. Of course, he doesn't listen, so I did get a District 5 officer to come talk to him, I think he got a citation. And those citations are pretty hefty, so just let everyone know, just because your neighbor uses fireworks, you don't have to, sit there and watch. You can call the cops, or call District 5, whatever, and they will get a citation. So I just wanna let people know that.
How long do your, civilian call takers go for training before they're actually put in for the cause?
Here's a good question. So they're in classroom. Now it's gonna be a little bit different because they're UCT. We're trying to get them trained for fire and police. But just for the law, it was 4 weeks classroom and 3 weeks OJT. And for, medical is 2 to 3 weeks classroom, and then their OJT is a little bit different. I'm not sure exactly how long. They said 6.
I imagine you were a call taker before supervisor, is that right?
I was a dispatcher.
Can you just kind of speak to like what it's like for the dispatchers and the call takers, like, cause I imagine you're getting all sorts of calls, you're getting a lot of them. I mean, how do you kind of like manage yourselves?
We do have an EAP, but, I guess it's hard, and sometimes it's not hard. You work with the lieutenants at the district station who help you out. You have officers that do go in back-to-back calls. I mean, they clear from one assignment, they have to go to the next. So we can only do what our resources allow, and, with the cost that we have in, we do have officers at the district who will try to, take some of those reports over the phone if they can. So there's everyone that's helping out to make sure that we are getting to these calls in a timely manner.
And it depends on like where we are. I'm the District 5 lieutenant, but we can, that night, say 4th of July, if we have the staff and we may say, okay, you take only fireworks calls. If we can do that, if something else does not come in that needs to be prioritized. We do a variety of different things to get calls answered, because in reality, officers don't get to go home until that board is about clear. I can't speak to how many calls are all over the city for fireworks, but sometimes we could have, on 4th of July or, January 1st or 31st, 200 calls pending at once midnight comes. So it's, like she said, we all work together. They have to stay over. More than likely, they're extended, the whole city will be extended. And even if it comes down to another district that's not busy, we'll ask them, can you come over and take some of our calls as well? So we really do try, but I mean, we just have a big city. We utilize each other to get those calls. That's very important to the city of Milwaukee Police Department to get those calls down. If those calls are up, guess what? Officers, sergeants, lieutenants, they're not going home from their shift. They could supposedly end at midnight, and they're not getting off to 6 o'clock in the morning, because guess what? A priority call is coming in, and priority 1 could take hours and also additional resources. But on the back end, you still must answer those calls that are, that are pending those fireworks or whatever. You must answer those too. So everyone is working together, and sometimes we can be reactive to what we have. You know, we can have a plan in our mind all we want, but, you know, as being in the chair and working with dispatch, we sometimes have to do things and get creative to answer these calls for service, whether it's high or whether it's low. But we do try, they don't just disappear.
Could you have the slide that had the, by month ranges and how many calls you guys are getting? So the 911 calls are denominator calls for them. What's the, like, is there like a, best practice time frame for how long you get to, like, the estimated time you should aim for to get to a call, or is it just if someone's close by, they're gonna go no matter what?
They're gonna go no matter what. I mean, it's, we don't have a steadfast rule, but we do look at, if it does take you too long, you should be able to get there based on where you are. You know, you should be able to get there in a certain time. We just kind of gauge too long, took you too long to get to this call, but sometimes that's what we do as dispatcher supervisor. Why are you taking so long to get to this call? And we pinpoint those things like you need to be here. I mean, it's a whole lot of moving parts, but we do that. And when you say get to calls, are you speaking of from the point of being dispatched or when the call goes on board? Because those are different kind of timings. Like you can get a call, but it may not be dispatched at that moment.
I'm thinking from like end user experience, like when I pick up the phone and call, and the time frame from then to like when an officer actually shows up at the incident scene, is there like a goal time, like, 15 minutes for 911 call, 3 hours for non-emergency?
It depends on the call volume for that day, the call volume at that minute, and when you will get a response and how calls are prioritized. Number one is, you know, we're safeguarding, you know, life. So we're gonna get those, and if, say, officers are tied up on those, then your other calls, a 6-hour call, it can take 2 hours for someone to actually get dispatched to that call. It depends. We always try to prioritize those things and look at the board and see what we can. Like I said, that's when it comes in where it says, okay, you're my traffic car, can you try to clean up, I call it the back end of the board, those lower priorities, so that they aren't sitting there. We have people in the office that call out in addition to taking those walk-in calls that come into the district. It's just a lot of moving parts, and, you know, being in the patrol aspect of it, you have to take a look at that. 8 hours a day, what's going on, who's doing what, where are they, where can you take from here to put over here, so that everyone is, you know, their calls are answered. There aren't calls that go unanswered. Whether it is a call that can be taken care of over the phone, we often will have a person in the office call and say, well, do you still need our services? We do a lot of that if we can. I know I do as a supervisor. I say, front office person, if you have time, can you call? If I have a booker, I say, booker, if you're not busy, we don't have prisoners right now, can you get on the phone and make some calls? And these are all officers. We try to get these, we really do try to get these things done. I know it feels like the calls are unanswered, but that is a priority for every lieutenant across the city, getting these calls, you know, answered and serviced, and, you know, working with our DEC communication centers to get it done. So, I mean, we have officers that they're on calls, you know, where they might be sitting on a call, they will call calls to try to get them on the board, off the board. Like I said, if calls aren't down, they're not going home. So, they have a stake in answering those calls and getting them done too. That's how we, you know, we work across the city.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
chair, who's doing what, where can you take this, y'all split up, you go over here and to, to get these calls answered. All right, I am not Captain Jeremiah Jax, so I'm Lieutenant Norberg. I've been at District 5 for about over 2 years. I started off on late shift, that midnight to 8, and then I moved to early shift. So, and I will be leaving soon, but
Where you going?
I'm getting promoted to Captain Night Watch. So I'll be out in the city from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. You might see me standing in the street somewhere. So I've been having to get my gear on and get back used to this stuff. So I've been probably away from being out in the street for about 7 years, but I'm ready. So
Ready to get back to the streets, huh?
yeah, it is what it is. Now I can, I have a new respect for my officers. I've been kind of shadowing out there when they are on these calls and, dealing with folks and our shootings that have been happening, non-fatals and homicides. So, and Captain Jack should be here next. He just needed to have a lead. So the stats we're gonna really talk about, they're from May 1st to May 31st of this year. The Milwaukee Police Department welcomes any comments, questions, or concerns as it relates to our department actions, including, but not limited to policies and practices concerning traffic stops, field interviews, risk, and no action encounters. So, if you can see that, the first column here is our Part 1 crime. April to May of this year, just the changes, good and bad, as you can see in the District 5 area from April to May, there was 100% increase, numbers being 3 to 6. So, I mean, if you've been watching the news, it's been a rough couple of weeks in the city of Milwaukee, and it doesn't exclude District 5. Rape, there was a 17% increase. Robbery, in the green, so robberies have gone down within the last 30 days. Aggravated assault has increased from 83 to 108, 30%. Human trafficking stayed about the same. Total violent crime is up 24% for us. And like if you can see like the dispatch calls, you can see as May gets here, June, the calls start rising 911, and then once the weather gets warmer, then those calls kind of tail off. But weather has been all over the place, including the last 2 or 3 days where it's been 80 degrees. Burglaries are actually down 32 to 19, so a 41% increase. Our thefts down 3%, auto thefts down 2%. Arson stayed about the same, so total property crime 10%, and if you go down just a little bit, our non-fatal shootings have, April to May, have jumped from 4 to 12%, which is a 200% increase. A lot of those are due to, from working in just random, like, arguments. Sometimes the people don't even know each other, could be road rage, but that is the end result of what, people are, doing out here. Our carjackings haven't increased or decreased, so it's about the same. On the other side, just from year to year, 2024, year to date to 2025, homicides are up 8%, rape up 13%, robbery is actually down 26%, aggravated assault is down 14% from a year, and human trafficking is up 50%, but it's 2, 3, it's the number of one that's being reported. So violent crime is actually down 15%. Your burglaries, year to date down 7%, thefts 12%. Auto thefts overall, even though it's down in one category for the month, it is up 5%. Arson, it is up 31% year to date. I know we did have a series of it seems like fires, which was arson. So that went up in the last couple of months, but your total part one crime down 9%. Non-fatal shootings year to date, still down 20%, and carjackings down 44%. Carjackings, I believe, is due to, our criminal investigation unit finding out who these groups are. Could be groups of juveniles who are doing a series of carjackings, not, you know, so much as random as we think, but groups who do this, you know. I do recall over the summer, I think during the RNC, we might have had like 10 in one night, and it was a group of juveniles, and a citizen happened to step in and said, you know, I think they standing on my porch, and then the cops went over there. They ended up getting in a pursuit, but those kids were ready to go and ready to not be caught and do some more. So, your aldermanic crime, 1, 3, 6, 7, and 15. These are just the numbers here for that. For homicide, number 7 with 1, and then rape, the highest being number 6. Being number 6, robbery, 7 for number 6 as well. Aggravated assault, 76. Aldermanic, number 6. Human trafficking stays the same. We don't get that too or report it too often. I'm gonna say it doesn't happen, but report it to us. Your total violent crime, of course, your lowest being automatic 3 with 2, and then your highest at 6. Burglaries, highest 14, automatic 6, and then your lowest being, 3 and 7. And I would say my eyes ain't as good as they used to be. I'm not as young as I look, but I see the change that's coming. Your thefts, 12, 8, 47, 3, and also 3 auto thefts, automatic district. 6 is 33, compared to your 3 in automatic district 3. Arson, few and far between. Number 1 is 1 and number 6 is 3. So as far as your part 1 crime, 6 is gonna be the highest at 97, and then your lowest is gonna be 7. If you look down here, and I'll put some mapping up here regarding your non-fatal shootings. 6 is the highest, and also 1 being the lowest, and 15 is kind of coming in the middle there. Carjackings, you can see the numbers down there. 1 is 1, 6 is 1, 7 is 2, and then 15 is 0. The top 10 calls over here are shot spotters, welfare, trouble, subject, on dime. As you see, shot spotter, total for our district in that small amount of time is 362, and those are priority 1 calls. And your shot spotter is where someone doesn't actually call. There's systems around, or detection systems that pick this up, which those are immediate response, and will send those lower calls to the bottom. And those have to be, you know, answered. Sometimes there's nothing there, there's no casings recovered, but we do answer those as soon as they come in.
Wait, sorry, so there's an automated system, no one's calling those in?
Shot spotters, no. So there's a difference in a shot spotter and a shots fired call. Shots fired is is what they label the call. Someone actually picks up the phone and say, I hear shots, I hear this. And the shot spotters are detections that we have throughout the city.
What's the detection device that you guys are using?
It's called shot fire.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, that is what it's called.
And you said that's a priority 1?
It is a priority 1.
Over other people calling in?
No, a shot fire, no, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just telling you that is we have 362, but it's a higher priority call. It's a priority 1. It would be the same as a shooting that comes in, because a shot spotter, even though it's not reported by a physical person, someone could be hurt over there.
Is it auditory detection?
It is. It's a system, like a triangulation system that comes in, and 5 has a lot of them. Some areas don't have them, but some of our most challenged areas they have this shot
So
spot.
that's why you were saying sometimes they get a false detection when it's fireworks that are really common?
It could,
Yes, that's
yep,
what I
the
was-
shot
That's what I
spot
was
picks up.
telling you. And even
Oh.
though that dispatcher told you that,
Yep.
we still responded because with that loud noise, that shot spotter activation detected,
Yeah.
then
Sound like
I
a
still
shot
responded.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, it's like a detection device, but it bounces off of this and it triangulates and say, it was 4 or 5 shots fired in front of this house or in this alley. It's really close.
And it's sometimes for me, when I'm out there, it's like dead on, smack dead,
Yeah.
exactly where it's at.
And you'll look down and they'll just be like a shell.
Right, the shell
It
is
could
right.
be, you know, but those are priority calls. Sometimes the officers, when they answer those right away, they can get there and they can find somebody, not necessarily anyone hurt, but someone suspected of firing off shots.
So if someone's shooting from a car, it'll triangulate, but the car could be long gone, but you'll still find evidence.
It'll tell us
It's a
drive-by.
drive-by.
It'll say it's a drive-by, and sometimes those equate to someone's house has been, their shots have been fired into their house. That's why we get those like so quickly. Welfare of a citizen, that's coming in at number 2, 319. Your trouble with subjects, which is generally sometimes they ain't really committing a crime, but they're causing a disturbance to someone. Subject with a weapon that comes in, whatever that weapon is, and their intent may be to do harm to someone. Assault and battery, our motor vehicle, total for the district is 201. We get a lot of motor vehicle accidents, and we know around Capitol, Tatonia, and sometimes when we don't have help with the motorcycles, you know, they're a different entity, they're not assigned there, we might not get any additional help for motorcycles just to take accidents. I mean, that's put into our call too, you know, that we must, and depending on if someone is injured or not, we may have to get there, you know, as soon as we can versus somebody that has like a PDO or property damage only. So, those are, pretty in the middle for us. Threat complaints, your death subject wanted, 129. That could be many times. A lot of times we get calls from DOC saying this person violated whatever, and you know, the terms of their supervision, and they'll just put a call on the board for us that, can y'all go over there and check and make sure they brakes are working? So, we get those, you know, or if they want us to go and pick these people up, you know, that has become a job for us as well, which goes into our call volume as well. And, lowest battery, DV, fights, assault, DV and batteries, those are priority 1 calls for, us as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I'm just wondering, do the other police districts do the same thing per aldermanic district, do you know? Just
They should have
because
something like this as
6,
well.
I know you have all of 6 and only small chunks of the rest, so it makes it look like 6 is so much worse, but that's because you have the whole entire 6th district in the 5th district, but you only have slivers of other.
Right, of
aldermanic.
other ones, that
So
is
I'm
correct. Some are
wondering-
larger than others.
Right, I'm just
Correct.
wondering if the other police districts do it, so we could compare it apples
Yeah, I
to
don't-
apples, I'm
go
really
ahead.
curious.
They will. We all get our monthly crime and safety meeting slides
Do we get
from
to see
the office of.
Can I email you? I'm kinda curious.
Well, we don't get theirs, we only get ours.
I just, like, just because if you don't say it, then people are like, oh my god, well, this district's terrible. You know, I'm just wondering, I would love to be able to see all the aldermanic districts and compare their full geographies.
Well, each district has a CLO or a CPU, assigned to them.
Sure.
Normally, if you go on the Milwaukee Police Department website, it can state who the captain is of that area and also the email address to their CPU. Perhaps they could get that information for you, but for District 5, it's shared, you know. with
Right,
us.
no, I
But
get
I
it.
think
I
what
just-
you're looking into is like, can we get this broken down based on a per capita, so you can see.
I'm not gonna ask them for per capita, that's way
No,
too
but that's
much
what you're
data
trying-
crunching.
That's what you're trying to see, right, it's like. if
Well,
it's-
I'd rather just see the entire district for every aldermanic district.
I can very easily ask for a whole map. Hey, can you add a slide to ours where.
For
it shows
citywide, is that
the
what
totals
you're-
For
Yeah.
every aldermanic district.
Yeah.
Per capita sounds hard. For sure.
That sounds great. I probably wouldn't do
Well, that shows you like
It
some
does.
actual crime.
So, this is, I guess we're May 1, May 31st, where these, firearm, say homicides and your firearm related, crimes are happening, DV arrests. For May 1st through 31st, firearm related homicides, there were 6, which is, 100% for us. There were 2 arrests made out of those. So the others may be out there unknown, or CID is still working on those to find a suspect. Aggravated assaults, 108. In that month period, we've had 12 non-fatal shootings. Those, then firearms related is 69, count with the 64%. I think that's, I'm sorry, I can't tell with the color of it. And then DV related, 24%. Arrests out of those, 17, your locations where these mostly happen, 61 residents, and also in the street, 46%, and businesses. 2 of the incidents, 2 separate incidents involved a homicide victim and a non-fatal shooting. Those are what you get, like, it could be a double shooting. So one person may, not live in the other person. Which we recently had one off of like Titonia Ring. That would be considered your double. One person did not die and the other did. So a homicide incident that can involve 2 victims as well. A non-fatal shooting, one of them involved 3 victims. Most frequently these things are happening on Thursdays and Saturdays of the month during the hours 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., and 7 p.m. to 10 a.m.
You said those shootings were?
These incidents that occurred is between those times. And it should be a copy of, I don't know if you have one, the slides that are here.
Oh, I'm just taking my own notes.
Okay.
But I'll grab one of them.
So kind of all times of the day. Your robberies between May 1 and May 31st, 15 and 4 carjackings. 13 of those were armed and 2 strong armed. So your arm would be with a weapon. The armed robbery with a weapon, a strong arm is a threat of force, or to threaten somebody like that you might, can you see? That you might hurt them. There's no actual weapon. The locations here, most of them were on the streets, 2 at businesses, 1 at a residence, and we have 1 down there parking lot. 2 of the robberies actually occurred in 4200 block of North 16th Street. Most frequently, yes ma'am, occurred on Tuesdays and Fridays during the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Hey, Lieutenant, could you do you have data that, points to if these individuals are coming out their house to drive the car, or they are operating their vehicles and being carjacked, like at an intersection or not?
I'm just trying to think. Some of them could be as they're parking their vehicles. It's different times of the day. I don't know if any of my officers have that information, or I'm just trying to think in my own mind in the last month.
I don't exactly, but a majority of carjackings that I've seen are people they park the car, they're sitting in it for an extended amount of time. And that's when they'll get hit. Or it's early morning, they're just going out to their car, especially when it's colder, either they remote started it, and you see that it's running, somebody's gonna be coming out to it, they'll wait for that.
And some of the carjacks that I respond to is drug related.
Oh.
They know the suspect or the victim.
Here are our burglaries, 19 burglaries, most residential, 12. Businesses, 6, and then one garage burglary over the month. Total, arrests are 3, top items taken, money and building materials. Methods of entry, prior Jimmy, say doors, unlocked, where there was no force, but the property was still burglarized. Broken glass, 2, and then broke or removed door, 2, most frequently occurring on Thursdays during the hours of 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. So,
It's a lot of overnights for them.
yeah, when people might be sleeping, or, you know, maybe we have a lot of people that actually work, you know, overnight, or not at home, but it says on Thursdays,
Those
12
3
a.m.
arrests, did that solve some of the 19 or just 3 of the 19?
It's, you know what, actually I can recall, officers, one of our special cars, they work 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. They kind of started looking into videos or gathered the reports for the burglaries, that were happening. So they looked through video surveillance, that we had in file, and they actually, looked at a time when they thought that these might be occurring, and they went over to that area during that time in their mind, like, oh, this person might hit at this time, and they did get someone in custody. So, you know, when they have time to do that, they sit and do that.
That's exciting. That's like the kind of
Yeah.
thing like you wanna hear. Is like
Yeah, and
everybody
they,
did it.
like I said, they're out there working hard and turning their brains, and, you know, and we try to give them space to do that as well. But sometimes this is how our burglaries come down, and it's not like, it's not one person. It's usually, and it's a kind of a crime of opportunity. It's usually not 2 or 3 people usually is one person. Your auto thefts, 49 attempted. We have 7 completed 42. Top vehicles that are taken, your Nissan, 9, General Motors, 7, Honda, 6%, and Kia, 6. Not 6%, I'm sorry, 6. Most frequently occurring Tuesdays and Fridays during the hours of 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. 11 of those were taken with keys, and also 2 arrests were made, and 3 of the auto thefts occurred on the 700 block of West Capitol, during that time, May 1st through May 31st. Recovered, out of those vehicles, 30 were recovered. And that's it. Any more questions before we go ahead?
It's not a question, it's something related to the fireworks, so if somebody has a question about the stats, they can ask.
Okay, well, let me, finish it out, and then we can go.
Yeah.
You guys wanna do this, or?
Any questions about the?
I
We have our
go ahead.
bicycle giveaways Monday, June 30th. It's gonna be at Rose Park. Rose Park is right there off MLK between Burleigh and Chambers. It's gonna be a fun event, food, ice cream truck, fire department's gonna be there, sheriff's department's gonna be there. And then we have our specialty units as well. And, some tables, some vendors are gonna be there, Mary Kay with makeup. So it's gonna be a 3-hour fun event, and then we're gonna be giving away quite a few bikes. Yes, we do. We're gonna be giving out helmets. We're limited on helmets, but we'll be giving out helmets and bikes, yes. And then we have our National Night Out, which takes place on Monday, August 11th. That's gonna be at Kern Park. Kern Park is right there off of Humboldt, between, Keith and Singer Circle. So it's a big park, and there's gonna be tons of activities, face painting for the kids, giveaways, from, air fryers to whatever you can think of, shoes, brand new tennis shoes, so it's gonna be a lot of things happening that day, basketball and, food, of course, dunk tank where you can dunk the officers, if you guys are familiar with our National Night Out. We have our dunk tank every year, and then it's gonna be tons of more activities and other, things for you to see. It's a resource event for the community, so a lot of resources will be given out that day.
How do you guys cross promote these events? Like, are you sending out these flyers to like the Title I?
All of our partners, and our communities, within District 5, that's how we promote. We have Safe and Sound here, they promote for us at times as well.
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook, social media.
And this is for like the youth, are we talking about national right now?
Yep, so that's how we promote that. Safe and Sound does an amazing job with promoting our
our things, and, we collaborate on a lot for safe and sound.
If you don't blink real quick, I know Gideon takes these posters. Gideon Verdane, he works at Channel 4.
Oh,
And
okay.
he does speak about them.
Okay, well,
But
maybe
most
I can-
people don't listen, so he does. He'll hold
Okay.
them up and he'll give the information
Would be a great resource for
as a
us,
student.
especially next year. Yeah.
Definitely, we'll get in contact with them.
And Juneteenth will be coming up June 19th.
Yeah.
So.
This routine takes place, it's like smack dead in District 5, so,
Yeah.
and we take a lot of officers, to, assist with that event, cause it's a big event. And, it needs to be safe, event, so
Yeah.
we take pride in, keeping our community safe in District 5.
Keep going.
What is this you gotta bring in?
This is the 8th annual bike zone that we're doing this Saturday.
Okay.
30 participants in one town. Who wants to, enjoy a 6-mile ride?
Yeah,
This
and my
is
day.
this is a community event, there's gonna be food and, of course, we're gonna be there. But we're not in charge of this, but we are gonna be huge participants in this. But it's a great, if you wanna learn about bikes or get your bikes repaired, things like that, they're amazing, they do an amazing job.
Takes place every year,
Every
from
year.
my understanding, and we're gonna assist with traffic so that everyone is safe, and, the June 7th, this Saturday, I'm gonna be on bikes.
We're gonna be on bikes.
Yeah.
Do you still ask people to register their bicycles? Just ask.
No, I think
That's how old I am.
No, actually, yeah, they used to give like plate license
Yeah.
plates.
Yes,
but
you got a
it's-
little plate.
No.
I still have mine.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I came down to District 5, when I was younger, I used to ride my bike instead of riding the car. And they pimped it out, I mean, they put rear view mirrors on it and lights and horns and just did it all for me. I said, boy, free.
Just so we can finish up.
Hold on, Bill.
Oh, no, go ahead.
For my package, digital copies of those so we can put it on the sale page.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, you know, remind us, can you send me, do you
I
mind?
put it on.
Yes. I'll forward it to you.
Okay, I'll put it on.
And then there's some, I believe this is at the back of the packet too, this, sheet here with all the information that's on here, all the events that, are occurring. And here you have your CPU and CLO, the tier's not here today,
No.
but you guys all know, these officers here, this is your CPU, CLO, District 5. So, if you have any questions, you may reach out to them, they have an email that you can send emails to that. Advertisement of free roof replacement available, I think that is attached as well. And then we recently, they have another, Center Street Park brought with the cop, we had one on Atkinson a couple weeks ago. With the sheriff's department and other, community divisions that will be there, I know it's hard to see. Prescription, take back, June 11th, that will be coming up. And somebody had you had a question?
Yeah, my friend from Safe and Sound, my good friend who I'm just meeting now, Tony. A humble idea / suggestion, since there's a lot of talk about fireworks, and I think we're putting a lot on the police, and that's not something that they're very well equipped, but we as a community, I think, could organize ourselves in some ways to try and get some messages out about like why fireworks are actually a bad, hey, why they're
not allowed in city limits.
because it's really tough for veterans, it's really tough on pets, it's a fire hazard. And so my question, or my humble suggestion is, the issue is also comes up around New Year's, where people shoot guns, and I just wonder if it wouldn't be worthwhile to have like a little working group of people are really passionate about thinking about how to put some messages out around fireworks, like, could we have some social media posts that had pets, you know, some really cute looking scared pets? You know, could safe and sound maybe organize just like a little bit of community action.
Definitely, and I would need help from everybody, right? I wanna commend this, lady, this woman right here for your bravery, because what she did is prevention.
Yeah, I wasn't enjoying the fireworks with them. I heard
But she was-
someone who didn't hear that.
Yep,
I went over
yep,
to tell them.
no matter how.
And I
big
even
it
had
is.
pictures, cause at my duplex, in that block one year, I remember they had fireworks and like a week later, they're coming door to door because one of the kids blew off 2 of his fingers.
Right.
And they're coming to us, asking us for money to help them now.
Sure.
And I showed that picture to them. I showed that picture and I said, just so this doesn't happen to you. See, I've been over there 65 years.
Mhm.
So I knew them, saw them grow up, and these are their children, so I wanted to educate them.
That's right.
And I said, let's stop this, and like I said, 2 days later, he was over at the house looking through my gutters to take any fireworks out that he had thrown there.
That's beautiful, but just the testimony that she gave, I feel like we all should be doing that, no matter how, like I say, big, bad, or mean these people may seem. They all just need somebody to talk to at the end of the day. Let them know that they're not the only people living in this neighborhood. Let them know they don't run the block, okay? Let them know that you will call the police if this happens. But at least they'll look at you with some respect because you went to them face to face and let them know how you felt. Instead of just, you know, calling the police off the game. So I know it seems harder than said, easier said than done. But I would recommend everybody to try. And that was a great recommendation. I will make flyers on fireworks safety, and things of that nature. But I have pamphlets with, please take my number and we can.
Yeah.
There's more pamphlets with my number on there outside, but that just, I couldn't stop thinking about your story because that's what we should do.
No, because when I hear everybody, well, they're illegal, and it doesn't matter. I went to the DMV this morning to get my sticker, and the guy in front of me had a registration for a car, and when she asked for his license, oh, I don't have one.
Right.
And I was like, well, how can you am I missing something? Did something happen where you just can go get the car, register it, but you don't have a license, and you here at the people, and they gonna give you whatever you need, and I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, we gotta change the behavior. We can
Yes.
enforce the laws, but we gotta change the behavior. That's not on the police to change the behavior,
No.
that's on us.
So, it may be kicking the dead horse, but hey, if that's what it takes, and that's what we'll do. We'll keep talking to the children to change the patterns that the parents are setting for them, and we'll also talk to the parents, even though they're a little more hard-headed. I don't exclude anybody.
And the crazy thing that I've actually seen when I used to do patrol, I don't know if they still, a lot of people buy their fireworks outside of the county, the city. You know, when you go on the freeway, you see fireworks for sale.
Oh my
And
God.
they give people these little pieces of paper saying that you're permitted to do fireworks in the city, and people have, you know, when we get to I've seen it.
And they show you the paper.
And they show us the paperwork, and then that's when we get to explain to them, it's not legal in the city of Milwaukee for you to, you know, to do these fireworks, but, I mean, it's people outside of the city that give them these pieces of paper that says, here's your permit in case the police come to you saying that you got permission. So I've seen
So
stuff
yeah, I
like
think
that.
it is about getting ahead of the messaging before people think that and get a false idea of security about it.
So every 4th of July, we stay on Free Brands. They have a firework party.
Yes.
It's like we're at a park, and there's so many cars, there's so many people that we can get into our own houses. And you call the police, they'll drive through, I guess, but nothing seems to be done. This is every 4th of July, and they just shoot them all
And you said they're in the park or?
No,
Or
this
just
is
in-
like they're at.
Oh, like they're at the park.
They're in our neighborhood.
And maybe the
I-
message could be, okay, you know, it's parks that have fireworks or permitted fireworks. Go visit those places versus doing it in the street. They are out there. It's a lot of parks that, I ain't seen it on the north side too much, but there are parks. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
but this
you know.
has been going on constantly for years.
Okay.
And I just.
Well,
don't
maybe we'll try to
understand.
come up with something this year.
Yeah.
And say like, perhaps, we may have to put overtime and say this is gonna be your job for the night, but we'll, you know, we'll see. But thank you for that, maybe that's an idea we could have.
It is 13th and 14th and Freeburg.
Okay, ma'am, I got you. I got you.
I think that's not a bad idea though, if you have residents telling you ahead of time, this is a real hot spot, why don't the patrols just go ahead and like, post up there right before it gets
But
dark?
I'm taking in that
Yeah.
information right now.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
I'll
all.
talk to you guys further
Yeah.
about the fireworks and
Yeah.
how the police department works. Cause I think that, when it comes to prioritizing calls and us being so busy, we don't have the squads to go to those firework calls. That's just in reality what we don't have, okay? So we're on a battery DV, a homicide, a shooting, we have like at least 6 squads blocking off streets for that shooting. And then we cannot get to that firework call. So that's just the reality of it. It's a manpower. If we had more officers, we would definitely go to those firework calls.
But you know, even before the court,
Yes.
some black and whites, when they go down that alley and do, I'm telling you, I went out in the alley and it was clear. That's all they have to do is see, well, because, my cousins are detectives, so they said, you mean you're still out there decorating at Christmas at 2 in the morning? I said, well, I'm not and so they know I light it up during that time of year. So just a couple of black and whites going through there, I'm telling you, I go out there and I feel
Like I said, we could take it into consideration now that you
just have them start.
You know, I got ideas turning in my head now that people have expressed that what we can do that's preventative before it comes up in our district itself. So
Before all the
the stuff like comes up.
They'll just know that some black and whites keep passing by, 13 to 14, so we never know when it, I mean, that's what they used to call it in school. They said principals did drive-bys, where they just come in the room, look, see what's going on.